And we're back. KTCR, Kill the Cat Radio. Because what killed that damn cat? Curiosity. Satisfaction brought it back. I'm Matthew Diabate, coming at you again. Welcome to 2021. More things change, the more they stay the same. We haven't changed, though. We're still here, bringing you the most interesting people around to talk about their ideas, their art, and their works. Kill the Cat Radio is an equal opportunity listener. Where you're from don't matter. It's where you're going that does. Now, amongst our listeners, it's no surprise I love painters. In fact, at this point, at 43 years old, I think it's kind of an obsession. Let me explain. I always wanted to paint. I have these funny visions about what a painter actually does. I imagine them sitting around, lounging really, on love seats smoking opium surrounded by naked, gorgeous models. That's what I thought at least. That was of course until I started to meet painters, and they explained a little bit of a different lifestyle. It was work. It was always the work, and they had to earn it. Okay, maybe once in a while there were models involved. Our guest for the evening tells a completely different story. He's the kind of guy who walks below the radar, keeps to himself. My guest tonight is Monte Antrim, a multi-decade resident of New York City. And all of you know that alone gets you an easy invite over to Kill the Cat Radio. But Monte's a little different. He's also an accomplished architect, a designer, and a fantastic visual artist. And for all the years he's been here, I've never even crossed paths with him. How is that possible? We both enjoy the same environments, dive bars, punk rock clubs, cool gallery shows, DIY pop-ups, but New York City's a mysterious place. Sometimes ships just pass in the night. Want to see his work? Type in his name, Monte Antrim, and Instagram into Google, and most of his work is right there for your enjoyment. I'm honored to have this fascinating gentleman over here at Villa Borghese Studios. So without further ado, let's get to it. So 3, 2, 1, and... First of all, cheers. Welcome, Kill the Cat Radio. All right, Monte.
Good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, indeed. Good to see you as well. Thanks for coming over to the studio. So why don't you go ahead and tell the audience who you are and a little bit about yourself.
I'm Monte Antrim. I live in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I'm a visual artist of some kind or another. Trained as an architect. I work as a design illustrator when I work, and I've been hanging around North Brooklyn for the last 20 odd years.
Yeah, that's a long time. I remember last time we were talking about that when we were over at Jack Bar. I was asking how long you've been here. It's about how many years you've been here?
I moved to New York City in 1998 and moved to LIC in 2003.
And that's Long Island City for anybody who doesn't know about that area.
Is or was.
Yeah.
It's very different.
When you moved there, what was it like?
When I moved there, it was a transitional industrial neighborhood that had 2 condo towers. You know, it's right across the East River from Manhattan, so it has glorious skyline views.
Yeah, it looks great over there. It looks
like
awesome.
That. So it was kind of inevitable that it was going to be developed with high-rise.
Because now it's a lot of high-rises, right, over there?
Yeah. And they've a little bit swamped the culture over there.
Yeah.
There are still... there aren't very many artists.
Because PS1's over there. PS1's over there, right? Mm-hmm. So you got them all on PS... Is it PS1?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's been there since you've been there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Noguchi Museum, if you go a little further up, is up there too. There's... PS1, I think, was kind of a transformative thing for LIC. I don't remember when that happened. I think it was earlier than my time there.
And then the Museum of Moving Image, right, is there as well? I think that's so, there as well. Yeah. And so it's kind of like a little pocket of... a little cultural pocket there.
It had a little window of time where there was interest in it as a cultural center. There's also a lot of film production and things that are kind of ancillary to creatives that has always gone on out there, but it had a little hot spot of or a sweet spot between having cultural things of interest, but artists could still afford to live there.
They could live there, right. And then the train, I think the trains that go there are...
The 7 train is
7.
Down where I was.
Right, and then the G kind of goes over to Court Square. That kind of gets you over there.
Yeah.
And what year did you move? What did you move to Manhattan? How about that? Yeah.
The move to Manhattan was all the way from Seattle, so that was a big transformation. I had lived in Seattle for the better part of the 90s and moved here with my then wife, and we stayed initially in her father's girlfriend's apartment in Chinatown.
Wow.
Christie and Broome. It was a fantastic place.
I can only imagine what that was like in the late 90s. Yeah. That's got to be an entirely different...
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Bowery was still noticeably the Bowery.
Yeah, the flop houses.
In all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
The flop houses, but also, slicing machine vendors and all of the really old school
the weird smell
stores.
Of plastic.
Sure. And at night, it was Soho and the Lower East Side and...
Did you have to watch your ass over there? Was it dangerous? I mean, it was...
I never really noticed. I mean, I tend to kind of... I've always been somebody who wanders around the city. I'd spent, the time in Seattle itself, you can get into some unusual...
Yeah, the 90s in Seattle, that's a whole thing right there, right? Pike Street, you got all that going on,
mm-hmm.
right?
So, and I would walk all over the city then as now, and I've never really, I'm in the habit of being alert when I do that, and trying to be aware of what kind of neighborhood I'm.
You're not the guy walking around with these.
No, I'm not since I was a very young man.
That's some advice. Don't wear the cans. Don't wear the earphones when you're walking around anywhere, really.
Sure.
Just any city. I don't really care what it is.
Yeah, when I was young, I absolutely I would ride my bike with a Walkman. I would walk all over the place
Teenager.
In the middle of the night with a Walkman, and into my 20s too. But I don't really. I'm interested now more in the complete sensory experience of the thing.
Especially if you're riding a bike, you don't want to be. You see some people with the earphones with a bike. You're going to get run over. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Especially in New York City.
Absolutely.
Have you gotten in trouble on your bike like riding around?
No, I've been. You have close calls all the time. Somebody, you can kind of tell they're going to turn in front of you, and they turn in front of you, and
of course.
Get into a yelling match with
them. When the crazy door opens, you get one of those?
The crazy door, I have come...
There's always crazy doors.
I mean, I did get doored once. I saw it happening, and I just caught the last little inch of it. So
you never got nailed?
Just spun me off the bike.
All right, that's good.
It spun me off, and that was kind of startling, to say the least.
But what kind of city was Seattle then? I mean, obviously we only know it from, I'm sure anybody who's listening to this, who's younger too, they're like, oh, right, they're talking about, Pacific Northwest, rock and roll, Seattle, heroin, all this other stuff. I mean, was that pretty much...
Sure, in varying degrees. I mean, heroin I managed to avoid entirely.
Very good.
But I
one of the few in the 90s actually.
I know a lot of people who had experiences of all.
But what is it kind of like a raucous music scene and things like that? Was the nightlife pretty interesting?
Yes. So I moved there from Indiana from my college town, which was basically my hometown.
Did you grow up in Indiana?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So Indiana to Seattle. Wow, that's...
I went to Ball State in Muncie, Indiana. I saw a little raucous music scene come up there. There was...
In Indiana?
Yeah, there was a little punk rock bar.
Okay, all right.
That all of us who were around then hold near and dear.
What's it called?
It was called the No Bar and Grill.
The No Bar and Grill.
Because
still there?
It was all ages. Oh, no.
Oh, man, R.I.P.
It disappeared a long time ago.
Oh, man.
The guy who ran it, John Rands, had a record store in the basement of the sort of university village, and
this is making me weep for the old days. It just gives me a little record store.
He was absolutely the coolest man in Muncie, and just great. And he opened this all ages club to have, this was 1984 or 85, so it was kind of frat rock and that what you could hear around.
That's what was going on in Muncie.
That was the general taste of things, but it was a college town, so it had its contingent of weirdos, and they really found a home in this place.
Yeah, so that was so you knew that from the young age you wanted to be. You're like, look, I'm designing buildings. This is what I'm going to do.
I got interested in architecture, probably when I was 12 or thereabouts. Just from going to the public library. My mom would take my sisters and I pretty much every week, and we would come out with gigantic stacks of books.
So that's what got you going at first, when you started seeing these books. Was there an older person that kind of led you that direction to enjoy that? Because usually if you think about kids, usually young boys, they're interested in all these different kinds of things, but Were you drawn to mathematics? I mean, that was sort of...
Not especially. I think my dad worked in the auto industry, and I had always had like mechanical drawing classes from from sort of 5th grade on, and I think that got me interested a little bit to start with.
And then you hit the libraries, and suddenly these crazy architecture books
and I guess so. Yeah, I was interested in a pretty broad range of modernist architecture because the public library had, the books were kind of outdated, so instead of, this would have been in the 70s, they would have a lot of architecture books from the 50s and 60s. So
and those kind of are great books. Like, if you look at them now, they're art pieces. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
From that era,
even as book design, they're really nice.
Yeah, right. And then so you started going there, and then the school you ended up going to in Indiana, and it's in Muncie.
Yes. David Letterman went there as
wow.
well. One of the more famous.
What's the school called again?
Ball State.
Ball State.
After the canning jars, the Ball family made it big in canning jars.
And so you went there and you got your degree there, and then you're like, I got to get out of here.
I knew I had to do something.
Right.
I hadn't really. The way that my degree ended up, I had to stick around for the summer to pick up. I had an art minor, so I had a couple of art classes to wrap up, which was perfectly fine. It's a good way to kind of unwind.
Hell yeah.
And in that time, I met a woman, and she had grown up there but moved to Seattle and had come back. And maybe she said she wanted to get back out.
Oh, okay, because I was always wondering, it's either like escape, right, or it's love, right? One of these that brings a person out of their area.
So, I mean, the love side was a big part of it.
Of course.
And it wasn't so much escape as I knew I had to go somewhere. I was kind of thinking about Chicago, the nearest,
right. I mean, that's a huge
large city.
Yeah. Did you move downtown to Seattle? Is that where you got when you guys found a place?
Initially, Queen Anne. So
I don't know a lot about the area.
So the downtown near Pike Place Market is sort of surrounded by, to put it simply, there's a bunch of hills. So you have Capitol Hill, you have Queen Anne.
Okay.
And these kind of tend to define neighborhoods. I stumbled into, there's a strong market, or there was then at least, for little craftsman houses in Seattle. They're beautiful little wood-framed houses. Yeah. Queen Anne in particular has a ton of them, and I wound up working for a couple of architects, both based on, in that neighborhood, who did residential work, either renovations of existing craftsman era houses. Craftsman era is sort of pre-World War I and into the 20s. I'm probably getting that.
And they have a lot of those houses out there. Yeah. They have a lot of that. A lot of work for that.
It's kind of a factor of when Seattle boomed.
Yeah.
And so you get a lot of little houses for working, for workmen, and they just turn out to be beautiful houses. And
I'm trying to imagine the rent that when you moved out there, it had to be. I mean, that had to be cheaper. Though.
It was very cheap.
Yeah. What was it? Do you remember? For like a 1-bedroom.
I had a 1-bedroom that I think was $600 a month, but it had, the ceilings were a little taller than this. It had really beautiful columns in it. It was this was on Capitol Hill.
It was looking good. It was
It was a beautiful
$600. You got the
place.
whole thing. A yard. You get a little nature in there. No,
there wasn't. But I was right next door to the Comet Tavern.
The Comet Tavern. Is that still there?
As far as I know, that
is still... All right, okay. Shout out to Comet Taverns. We always like our dive bars, so we gotta...
Absolutely. I spent a lot of time in that place, shooting pool, and I think I watched Clinton get elected. Yeah. I was working for small architects doing doing residential projects, and the last one of these was basically the architect and me. We were the firm, and we had about 13 different projects going. And I came into the office on Monday morning and hit this thing called an answering machine.
Okay. Remember those guys? Remember answering machines?
Then it rewinds this cassette tape that phone calls that have come in over a landline over the landline have been recorded on this. Right. And I started playing it, and there was a message from my boss. But he was incoherent. He was not making much sense.
Uh-oh.
and he passed away.
Oh no! What, he had a stroke? He had a stroke?
No,
stroke or something?
He was HIV positive.
Oh man!
We had known that, and he had been living with that and dealing with that for years, and had been doing great. And so it was kind of a sudden thing,
yeah.
Which meant that suddenly there were 13 projects in various stages, everything from a house remodel that's well under construction to ones that are kind of at the very early stages of planning. I went to a coffee shop that I had done, that a friend and I had designed for another friend of ours, and it had been kind of like an informal design build thing.
And it was up and running already.
In a really cheap, it had just opened. It was in a really cheap storefront right in Belltown, just 2nd Avenue, and just really a stone's throw from the Pike Place Market. Great spot for it. A ton of foot traffic. The rent was dirt cheap. The arrangement was sort of, okay, the first thing you will do is you'll put a refrigerator in the space, and it will be working, and it will always have beer in it.
Those are good rules.
We will do everything we can to build this as cheaply as possible, but still be cool or whatever. And we won't overburden you, but you're going to have to pay for materials,
of course,
when they're needed. But not that much was needed. They bought equipment and all of that, but we just kind of scavenged around Seattle for things. The guy who was involved in that had a church pew, and he said, "Can you do something with this?" I'm like, yeah, it's really not comfortable to sit on, but we turned it and made it into a counter,
that's cool. I like that.
But you could still tell it was.
Yeah, you could tell it was a church pew, but if you turned it over and then had it there, you're like, wait a minute.
I used a crutch to hold up one corner of the church pew, just as a catty little bratty kind of detail. At any rate, so it was like that, but it also had sort of a Kurt Schwitters vibe about it. It was collaged. I just did paint and collage on the walls.
So it's not just designing, but you're also designing like the look of everything too. So you're painting everything.
We just did all kinds of ridiculous things. We made sort of a plywood. There are basically 3 of us involved, and the other 2 guys, while I was collaging the walls, they built sort of an overhead lighting valance, but really sinuous, weird little plywood thing where the structure was all just kind of very visible. It was it was really striking.
But you also had the artistic side too, because a lot of, I know some architects who are great at designing, but they wouldn't necessarily start painting or actually handling color and mixing color. And
I'm in the coffee shop, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, I like what you did here. I get the Kurt Schwitters thing, and I really like it." And then we're chatting a little bit about that. He says, "Hey, by the way, this room just opened up in the loft down the street. If you know anybody who's looking for a place." And I said, "That's funny."
You're like, just might.
So I went over and looked at it, and it was like a floor-through loft right across from the Moore Theater in downtown Seattle, like a block from the Pike Place Market. Wow. And the guy who was moving out was the bass player for Dinosaur Jr. I was going to take that space.
Nice.
My roommates were the vice president of Sub Pop and Chris Taquino, who was in the process of starting Up Records with Built to Spill and Modest Mouse.
Some of my favorites acts of all time, by the way, especially Built to Spill.
So that was a weird kind of landslide in my time in Seattle, because suddenly I had known that music culture was around.
You knew something was going on, yeah.
But I went to the shows and I hung out at bars, and I paid attention to the new Nirvana, the new Mudhoney, whatever. But I hadn't really had any close interaction with the actual people involved in the scene. I knew a few people who were in bands, but nothing very big. And so
at least you were there. That's kind of cool.
But
at least you had that.
It was an interesting time. Seattle was a really vibrant city in the 90s for sure.
Yeah.
But suddenly I kind of was in this crowd of people, and
Because you moved into this new
Yeah.
loft space.
Yes.
And the legacy of that connected to...
And I met people...
And through the cafe.
I met people and I met people in sort of design capacities and wound up collaborating with other designers to make, like we did the art director's office for Sub Pop, which was just a space in another in a related industrial building right around the corner from my loft. But basically they were setting up a big art department. They had Jeff Kleinsmith and Hank Trotter as their ADs at the time, who were both kind of big in the Seattle.
And you were designing one of these
Pantheon.
offices.
So we basically what we were tasked with was go out to Boeing surplus, or this was kind of what our solution was. Basically, we needed to make furniture, like build out a room that art directors could use. So you need high tables,
sure.
you need flat files.
And you knew this already from what
like
you
this.
needed, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It was more or less like design your own dream studio that you yourself don't have.
You can't own it yet. Not yet, but maybe one day.
Please.
Yeah,
that's still a
that's still a
problem.
Still waiting on that one.
Yeah.
One day, sir. One day.
So basically, we had to create a lot of furniture to kit out this space for the art directors, and our solution was to take a truck out to Boeing Surplus, which was where Boeing factory sells stuff that they need to get rid of.
Yeah.
And which means things like flat files you can get, and we were on a budget, so you could get things cheap out there.
That's cool.
But we really got into they would have enormous steel case desks. Steel case is like they're steel office furniture.
Yeah,
so
right.
this is a desk that's
I love those.
5 feet by like 32 inches.
What, do they have the long drawers too? Those ones?
And
those are the
they're
best.
all in that sort of like that green kind of
that weird green, kind of like
finish.
Submarine green.
So those things you could always count on Boeing trying to get rid of a few of them. So you could pick them up for like $35 maybe.
What?
They were heavy as
I don't know how you transport that kind of stuff.
Take a truck, but
right.
So we got a few of those. But they're this height. They're 32 inches or whatever, and it's not going to work for. You need a 40-inch. You need a work surface that's higher. So we would take plywood and just make these leg extensions, just big tapering things. So you've got, we would take off the old legs from the thing and just make these cartoonish replacements.
I'm
by
sure the art guys loved it, right? They're just like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is interesting.
But they were still, the drawers worked very
everything
well.
was like still, the structure was good.
It's great, solid furniture. The drawers work as smoothly as possible. They're spacious, and we just made it interesting in that way. And then they just wound up putting band stickers all over the desks. Which
made it look cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They looked right.
Do you still have any pictures of these things? Pictures of what you did? Like, I'm sure you have to have some. Yeah.
We would also usually the tops were kind of trashed, so to get a couple more inches of height, we would this other thing that you get that you used to get there was phenolic resin cloth. It's basically like big sheets of linen and or canvas that they would just impregnate with resin to make circuit boards, if you can imagine what circuit boards are made of. But they also use it as like a lightweight kind of substrate in building airplanes because it's very rigid, but it's very lightweight because it's just cloth. So you get a lot of tensile strength in terms of it bending and racking, but it's suspended in resin, which is a highly cleanable surface. And it also happened to be usually really beautiful. They would use this resin that was just like a deep reddish brown, and it wouldn't. You could still see the fabric. You would see the texture of the fabric, and you just use it like plastic laminate. So we would just make these floating tops with that stuff seamed together, and they varied in color, so you'd have a great big tabletop with like 5 different pieces making it up, and it would all be these kind of very sort of a like a monochrome Mondrian. They came out quite beautiful, and we'd get
awesome,
this rubber edging, just like a black rubber edging to put around the edge, and then those would be up on cartoonish little kind of donuts or something.
So they loved it. So that must have given you some street cred. I mean, at least some business and or street cred as far as like.
It was fine. It led to a few other things in that.
And at this point, you're paid. Like you're being paid for this. Maybe not exceptionally, but
well,
you're a working man.
Between the projects that I had inherited from before, which were more or less paying the bills, and then picking up this new stuff, yes.
Wow, and doing something that you love to do.
Yeah, and a lot of it
and
was...
having a little money to do it.
It was always a little money, but it was there was a lot of freedom, for sure. We were...
Less money, more freedom.
We were indulged.
Yeah, and some perks, I'm sure.
In what we did.
Right. Why the hell would you want to move to the most expensive, psychotic city ever? I mean, in the late 90s, you've got a pretty good situation going there. You got your studio, you got...
It's true.
I mean, that's it, like, bring it up. But
you're going to see a pattern emerge.
Oh, wait. There. I already kind of think, audience, can you guess what's going to happen next? Guys, come on. Go ahead. And he's only on his first beer, so, like, we gotta be gentle at first. Don't worry, there's 2 more in there. We can go get some more if we need it. All right, here comes the pattern. I'm already hearing it.
I moved here with a woman.
So it was love.
Yes.
Love struck you again, Monte.
Yeah. I met someone who, when I met her, said, I'm going to be moving to New York in the fall, so...
and you met her in Seattle?
Yeah.
And it was, did you meet through the cafes and all this stuff? You guys...
Through the culture, sure.
Yeah, it was like kind of the scene, what was going on. You're like, hey, what's going on? And then she's, I'm moving to New York, and you're like,
By then we had gotten married, so...
Oh, okay, that's what I'm saying. So it wasn't a fling. It wasn't some kind of like...
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Okay. Right.
I was conscious at the time that I was leaving something that I had been...
Right.
That had been developing for 9 years. And
right.
So I felt like it might have... I wasn't sure how... it was going to go from where I was. I'm talking professionally.
Right.
I had this project that was sort of partway through, and I felt like I'm not sure I'm going to get another. I'm not sure there's going to be another project like this afterward, and I think maybe I should try something else now. And so I moved while this house. This was just kind of a. This was a really good commission. It was a house in the San Juan Islands, and I moved during the construction.
Did you think about trying to do both, sort of, and like keep like the marriage going here, but also have work that in Seattle with the connections? And...
I mean, not exactly. I had about 6 months where I had to fly back to Seattle.
Okay, right.
On occasion, not a whole lot of times, but I had to come back to kind of do site,
of course, yeah.
Just to kind of
make sure everything was going.
Yes, I had a business
according to plan.
I had a business partner who stayed there.
Okay. So you weren't you weren't alone.
Also, another relationship that took some negotiating. We're still friends.
Okay, that's good. As long as you guys are still cool. Right? As long as you guys are still cool. But I mean, it's not like you're moving out to some. Some shanty town. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
shout out to Jerry, by the way.
What's up, Jerry? How you doing? You don't know me, but shout out to you, buddy. So glad friendship lasted all these years. But as I was saying, like, you're not moving out to some shanty town. It's not like I fell in love with this lady. She wants me to move to the farm. What am I going to do? Oh, woe is me.
New York City.
Yeah, right. It's New York City. I mean, I don't care what people say about it nowadays. It's still New York City.
I don't remember what my thinking was at the time in terms of... how is that going to work? Because I didn't have, I didn't have any certainty. I knew that I had about 6 months while this project was going on that I basically couldn't. I pretty much said I'm not going to take a job. That way I'm available. If anything happens with this is partly to kind of make it right with my partner and with the client.
Yeah.
Said, I'm not taking any job until this thing is done.
At least you knew you had a little scratch.
Which was kind of, I had money coming
cool.
in. I think payments were probably spaced maybe to take that into account.
Yeah.
I don't remember the details ever. It's okay. Not my strong suit.
It's all right. Hey, nothing.
So, I don't know. I think it was just a moment of... reckless abandon, and I think moving to Seattle had been similar. I just, at key moments in my life, I've kind of just said, okay.
Yeah, and you're like, let's see what happens here.
Yeah, I guess I had a degree of, youthful confidence that wish I could do they bottle that?
I think you can bottle that. Yeah. They call it cocaine out here. That's pretty much what I found about it. But most of the people, half the people I know who are young with the confidence, when you finally get to know them, you're like, oh, you're just high. That's why you're like that. That's why you're like that. Let me grab you another beer. Hold on a second.
And we'll be right back. 2, 1. Killed Cat Radio.
Oh, so it was we lived on the same block that Paul's Boutique was on the corner.
Oh.
So if that helps anyone orient themselves.
Yeah. If they know that, it's a deep cut, guys. Come on, Beastie Boys, you gotta love
People
it.
still remember the Beastie Boys.
Of course, you would think so. You would hope so. You would hope so. So that must have been interesting. Like the nightlife at that time. Did you end up like really embracing like a lot of going out, like going a lot of these cool places?
Yeah.
What were some of the bars that were there that you remember?
So about the same distance as where I was in Seattle to the Comet, I was on Ludlow to Motor City, which was sort of a Detroit. I think the owners were from Detroit. Do you remember the bar had like the medallions from cars just screwed into it?
Oh, that was like one of the cool bars when I moved here. I got here in 2005, and they were still going. I think by that point.
And it was just, I mean, it was just a good, solid dive music. You knew what you were getting into.
Right.
You were going to be listening to Motorhead, or it was going to be good but rock. And that bar had just light would pour in. It had a really nice glass.
Yeah, it had those
frontage.
big. Yeah, it had like it was really open. Facade that they had there. I fell into the library bar. That's kind of where I ended up. That was always been there for a while, and that was like the wild days.
I know I've been. I'm trying to think what like Local 183 was.
Yep.
Was up there. I went to Barramundi once or twice. We talked about the cafe that I had worked on in Seattle that was just kind of like a work of art. Barramundi was kind of like that, except in a really sort of kitschy.
Right.
You're
like, we did this better back in Seattle.
It was just interesting. It was, but I don't know. I did like it. Mars Bar obviously was.
Yikes! The only dive bar I could not go in. I thought I was tough.
A lot, but I went.
You went. You drank there.
Yeah, I never had any problems.
Oh no, I didn't have any problems
anybody.
either. I just almost wanted to puke.
It smell good.
I just wanted to puke. Like I even went to International Bar. I went to Library Bar. I went to all the fucked up places. All that stuff was fine, and it was always like this. But for some reason, Mars Bar, and I used to think I was tough. Like I can handle anything. Blah, blah, I don't give a shit. You go to Mars Bar and you're like, this smells like burnt tar heroin and like vomit and dead dreams. It was just horrible.
I have at least one good sketch of the Mars Bar to prove. Just kind of from the front looking back, like all the graffiti on the. There was like a neck face graffiti on the ceiling that I managed to.
And you still have some. You got these, of course.
Yeah, everything's.
I know you've got
everything's
documented.
Which that's kind of that's a whole thing.
Oh, big time. Now, so did you land any pretty cool gigs when you were here, like as far as like architecture speaking and?
No,
Oh, that's interesting.
Short answer.
Oh wow! No, hey, I mean that's.
I wound up after that period when I finished the Seattle house finished.
Sure.
And I just looked for a job, and I wound up with a firm that, I liked the people I worked with, but it was pretty conservative stuff. It was a lot of apartment interior renovations for well-off people. It had the distinction of being the project that I was finishing up when 9/11 happened.
Right, and that's a huge different thing. I mean, you're down there. I mean, you're working down there. I mean, you're a hop, skip, and a jump from.
So on September 11th, I went into my office early. It was up by the Flatiron, so 20th and 5th Avenue. I had to stop by there to pick up some paperwork and then go down to the job site to do some things down there.
Sure.
So I go to the office. My desk at that time it's off of a light well in the building. So I'm sitting there at 8:30 or whatever, just wrapping up, like, okay, now I'm gonna go jump on my bike.
Sure.
And I hear this airplane sound from the light well. Just the plane must have flown right above it.
I mean,
Because
it's
it was
not
just screaming loud. I was
Yeah.
like, I have never heard it.
You're like, that is not a good sound.
That was not normal. But then I was just like, whatever. New York,
I mean, New York's weird,
Weird things
sometimes
happen.
weird shit happens.
So I go downstairs, hop on my bike, and I ride over to, I forget how I went, but I wind up at like 7th Avenue and 13th, right by St. Vincent's. And I look up and I see smoke pouring out of the tower.
Oh, man.
So I stopped.
It's a Tuesday morning. It's like 10 minutes.
It's like 8 something, 8:40 or something. So I hopped off my bike, and people are saying, I think I heard a plane hit it, or just
that was always the first.
It was just that absolute. You think what, like a little Cessna ran into the. But that's a lot of smoke. So I don't know what possessed me, but I pulled out my sketchbook.
Oh man!
And I started sketching, and I was looking down at the drawing, and I looked back up. I should have been doing blind contour. Because I would have seen the second plane.
The other one.
Because I looked up and I saw the fireball come out the
Oh
side.
my god!
So
this is just like the scariest day in the world. Like
it was incredible. So I stood there for a few minutes, gaping.
Yeah,
and then
obviously.
It's like, okay, what I was going to the townhouse to do was to make sure that their big screen televisions had been installed properly into the cabinets and that everything was working.
Right.
So it was like, now would be a good time to go and do just that. So I bike my ass down there, get in, unlock, turn off the alarm, go in, and I turn on the TV, and so.
And you're in this like landmark.
So I got kind of this beautiful little,
Federalist building.
Beautiful little
You're looking
space.
at the television.
And so I got the rudiments of it, but then I was just steps away from 7th Avenue. So I went back out there, and for the most part, I stood out there and watched and made a couple more sketches. But
and did you see when the buildings fell? Yeah, oh man.
Yeah, each one. And
well, that's good. That right there is the emotions right there.
And at that time, where I lived on Ludlow and Delancey, there was nothing taller around us, and I lived.
No, that area is like.
I lived on the 6th floor.
Yeah.
So, and the roof door was always not only unlocked but wide open. I went up there and.
Did you leave immediately, like when the buildings fell, and then did you leave your work site immediately and then head home, or like what was the?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it was a state of. It was just a state of crazy.
I mean, I know. I left and turned everything off and locked up. There wasn't. I think I checked to make sure that both of the TVs were functioning the way they were supposed to,
right.
and was like, okay, that'll do it, and
But that's another New York pause right there. I mean, everything's like, like everything
and it
stops
paused for months. I mean, that period right after 9/11 on the Lower East Side.
I mean, no one's working. I mean, other than first responders.
For a few days, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I went back to my job. It's just that when you came out of the office at the end of the day, you noticed how the air smelled, and that was up by 20th Street.
Yeah.
It was. I remember the taste of the air was really distinct. There wasn't really much happening, and I bumped into an old friend from Seattle who had been, involved at Sub Pop, and but she had moved to New York, and she said, I work with these people, and I think you guys would really get on. And so she set up an interview, and I went in with my portfolio, and this company, at the time, they used to design all the Urban Outfitters stores. Right. So they had
kind of like some metal and like I remember it was always like kind of metallic stuff and like the rusted look.
Yeah, sure. They did a lot of industrial stuff. Yeah. They also the interesting thing was they didn't want their stores to be all the same.
Which I thought was kind of cool.
Designed each one individually, and they would do it. They would do it with some sense of context. Yeah. Either they would find a cool old building, or they would reference somehow where they were. Where like the region, the city. Yeah,
they actually were cool. They were trying to do something interesting, actually, and not just be.
And so this company had been sort of closely partnered with them from early on, and they had a beautiful loft in Soho that was their offices. Yeah. And so I interviewed with them, and they said, "Well, we really like you, but we don't have any positions open right now. Although but they said your portfolio is full of drawings." And we can always use people who can who can visualize, who can draw stuff. Would you consider doing that freelance? And I said, at this point,
Sure.
my new child, my no work, I absolutely
I got a
would
baby
consider
here. You know, I got
doing
the
that.
wife. Got to do this. It's, yeah.
And so they were really my first freelance client, and my best,
Not a bad client to have
best
for,
at the time. Yeah, because they were booming. Urban and anthropology. They worked on anthropology stuff as well. So their big client, that brand or those brands, were doing well. So they were doing well, and they had a really good design culture. I have friends from that, and we would have life drawing sessions after work sometimes, and they would do film screenings, or they would have somebody come in and just give a talk. They were good to have as a client. If it's that thing where you feel like there's one moment, like the guy saying, "I saw what you did here, and do you know anybody who needs a place to live?" Like, you get this kind of singular moment that
those are very rare.
Pass through, and that opens up.
Those are incredibly rare moments. But if you're not out there though, but if you're not in the zone, if you're not if you're not participating. Like, if people are just sitting at home, like, like the video game culture, I got tons of video game heads. They love their world. They love it. They're online. But if you're just alone in the room all the time and never put yourself, out there in that sense, or just even like for accidents to happen, you're not going to get those. You're not going to get those like choice moments where.
To me, that's what cities are.
Yeah,
that's why we have them, and that's what we value.
I mean, I come from a small town too. That's why we leave the small town, right? That's the one thing that's been taken away from New York City, I think, during this kind of
the ease of movement.
That kind of the randomness, like the randomness is a little different.
I feel like it's happened. I mean,
we just did it, didn't we? Didn't we just do it?
Absolutely. Right. And I will tell you this.
And we should have known each other before, but we didn't.
I'm pretty sure we must have met in Albright's.
It had to be
in Albright's backyard at one of his summer barbecues.
I went to only one of them, and I didn't stay very long.
All right, maybe.
So maybe, I swear to God, because Steve Douglas was like, I don't know why the hell you two didn't even know each other, because it's.
And also, though. Like, I hadn't been a regular at the Levee before COVID. It's just that suddenly I found myself in the position of, I want to know what bars are open at noon. Right.
Well, and that's got shout out to Levee, because that's shout out to Howard and
Howard and Susan for sure.
They're still holding it down. Thank God for us.
That's been fun. I got to do kind of my first piece of street art ever.
No shit. Wait.
There. Yeah. So on the facade of the building.
Oh, right on the outside.
There's like a window that's covered up with a sheet of metal or something.
It's right there on Barry, right? It's on Barry, the Barry side.
And Susan asked me if I would be interested in doing something for that little spot, and it's just like a little patch of wall, and there's an umbrella that covers, that cuts across it during the daytime anyway. But I said sure, absolutely.
And did George and Jack's? He did something in George and Jack's too recently.
Yes, so I'm now 2 street art projects in.
See, look at that. How about that?
I know. I'd always been interested, but I don't have really the vandal cojones.
You don't have the vandal cojones. You're not going out there at night. You're not just putting it up.
I will tell you this. I went to college on a scholarship, and you misbehave sometimes. Sure. And the first time I got caught misbehaving, somebody pointed out to me like,
"You're gonna lose that scholarship if you do this."
And that was how I went to college.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's rules for a reason.
So I've been a little careful about that kind of stuff, as much as I would
you should be.
An urban explorer and break into abandoned places and all that sort of thing.
I do know some people like that,
and more power to them.
But these guys they don't give a shit. I mean, like they're like pretty much anarchists, anyways. Like,
I'm a very.
You're precise. Let's put it that way.
I'm a weak tea anarchist.
Well, I don't know about this. How about like you're precise. You know what I mean? These guys, they're kind of like ramrodding their way through everything. I mean, that's how they do it. You know what I mean? They got great art. You know what I mean? But the way their lifestyle choices are. I mean, I don't have that either. I mean, I don't really have that side of it.
Also, I'm older now. I can.
Right.
I'm just gonna go on that.
What fascinates me about you is especially the people who are in your career. Is the mix of the tangible, the hard art. I don't know what would be like the best way of saying it, but like the hard art, all the materials that you're using, and then somehow using those materials and combining those into functional spaces or aesthetically artistic spaces. But you would do both form and function plus aesthetic.
Yeah, and ideally that's what you do as an architect.
Well, you would want to, right?
I mean, it's very important that something works, that it does what it needs to do, because it's people's physical being that has to interact with it.
One of my architect friends said, "Well, look at even like McDonald's chairs. Okay, like someone designed that. Okay, like someone sat around going, we're going to make this very specific, and it's the most." To the regular people, like it's just the most mundane thing in the world because it's like fast food, whatever. But if you really look at every single thing like that,
if I were doing a fast food restaurant, I'm afraid I would probably have to wind up with like a lot of injection molded plastic or something.
But you would see that. See, I don't even know what this is, but we take it for granted. I'm saying us of the regular class, we don't know, we don't understand any of this stuff. We don't see how much of it is around us. It's like when I was taking mathematics classes. Like I wasn't very good at math, but eventually, you have to get to a certain kind of. And when you eventually get past the algebra, you get to geometry, right? You're starting like early calculus. You look around, you go like, wait a minute, everything is math. Every single thing, you just look around, you're like, wait a minute. I remember having that vision, and I was like, whoa, everything is math. And I remember like it's almost like he's peeking my head into the world of mathematics, going, holy shit, every single thing in this universe is. And I was like, okay, back to literature. All right, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I think I had the same idea. You kind of get that idea of like, okay, math underlies everything.
Like, whoa.
Good. I still don't really enjoy calculus, and pre-calc was hard enough.
Stuff.
So,
yeah.
And you had to know a certain amount of math for architecture.
Of course,
especially
that's what.
in the pre-computer days, because basically, computer-aided design kind of existed in the 80s.
Yeah, but not really.
I remember one studio course in my 5 years that offered that basically they said everything you do is going to be documented on CAD, and I did not take that studio course because I was like, nope, that doesn't sound even a little bit interesting.
Oh, really? What's that program? What is the program again?
CAD.
Yeah, that's like the number one program, right?
Now I think maybe it's got some competition, I think.
Okay.
But again, I've never been that interested in it. I eventually learned CAD. But
so wait, just explain it just to people who don't know what this is. Like this
CAD is drafting, but on a computer.
It's a computer drafting, right? Yeah. It's a program that people can do.
In a nutshell. Whereas when I came up as an architect, you used a parallel bar and triangles and pencils on vellum, and then you went to the printer and
that's the real shit.
You huffed some ammonia fumes,
as one does,
and you ran off blueprints, and
So you never you never got to the next digital level of that. You're like, I'm staying here.
I mean, no, I eventually did learn rudimentary CAD. One of my issues now is I don't think I could go back into that world because it has moved on and I don't really have enough interest, I think, to learn how to do the digital stuff.
You wouldn't want to try to get into that kind of thing? Like that's...
Get back into architecture? Nah. I really liked doing residential kind of things because you know your client and presumably you have a relationship with them and they trust you and you kind of collaborate
and you're getting their vibe too, so you're like, okay, I'm all right. It's just a little psychology in there. You're kind of like, okay, what's going on?
You're collaborating with them to make a beautiful environment. I loved doing that. We talked earlier about designing, my ultimate art studio. I'd really love to design my own residence. I've never been able to do that.
Not yet.
I've been able to do things to places that I was renting.
Yeah.
But I would hope I'd like to at some point have some place that I get to kind of make my own thing, such as it is, and I hope I'm able enough to scavenge around in alleys for garbage to build it from.
See, that's even cooler, and that's what fascinates me about you is because when we met, we were talking about you're working in a sketchbook, and we're going to get into that right now. But I noticed that like even in the conversation that we're even having now, it's almost like you came out of a pretty structured environment, but always had that artistic bent to you on the side, which I don't know if you can say that about a lot of. Can you say that about every architect? I mean, because most of the time
I think it's sort of a stereotype about architects that they're
like mad geniuses or something like.
More that they're uptight.
Okay, so that's more the stereotype.
And it's an understandable thing. As an architect, you really do have to be. You're supposed to be
precise,
responsible,
and responsible.
Responsible. You have to know. You're making a building. Yeah. For fuck's sake, it's not.
You're not playing games. This isn't reindeer games here.
So I think one of my structures professor said, structures fail, buildings fall, people die, or something like that, as a way to scare us.
Oh, wow, that's kind of cool.
That was like a first year
I like this. I like this
class.
guy. That guy sounds kind of cool. I like that guy.
Don't you touch that. Killed Cat Radio.
He's got a 5x8 sketchbook in his hands right now.
So, but the ones that I used initially, they were bound down the long side.
So bound on the long side.
So it's upright, 5 inches wide by 8 inches high, and it was white paper. And I used those for a long time.
This isn't white paper? No, this is like...
It's a tan, sort of a...
Oh, right. Yeah, it's like a nice tan here. But
yeah,
did you always have the same style
point,
or no? Of sketchbook.
Yeah, just because it was basic. It was just kind of a
just open
Strathmore,
up.
Yeah.
No lines, no graph.
And that
there's no
size,
graphs.
No lines on it or anything.
Yeah.
Just blank white paper.
Right.
And that size is basically the size of a normal book. So it was easy enough to carry. I was usually carrying books around that I was reading anyway.
Yeah.
And so the sketchbook is just one more thing. And you can draw in it without drawing too much attention to yourself. You don't have some giant pad that you're suddenly,
or like a fold-up laptop or like a giant, iPad, one of these things nowadays, that draws a lot of attention. This is very subtle.
Yeah. So, and also I did, I was always walking around and looking for things to draw, so you don't want to carry a whole bunch of stuff.
But were you looking for something specific, or so you would just find something that was already there, or would you seek out something that was already
for things that were interesting to me? I think initially, I wanted to work on I was consciously trying to work on my drawing skills, so I was trying to draw whatever, but I guess, I want to...
Because they always start you on fruit, right? I draw the fruit on the table. That's like usually the first...
I was pretty much self-guiding as far as what I drew.
Okay,
but I drew some fruit.
Sure. Yeah, okay. I'm just saying, I remember our classes, I failed all of them. Like, it was just like, here's fruit, draw them.
But I would also, wander around the industrial wastelands of Muncie, Indiana, and draw, old water towers or
factories, brick walls.
The same shit that I draw now. When left.
Well, if you look around, there's a lot of there's all the abandoned factories here now.
I wish there was more.
Like you must have really enjoyed Kent Avenue back around 2005.
I used to draw the Domino building before they tore down the part that I liked the most. Everything. Like they had, the part with the aerial bridges that went to that Mars tower.
Oh yeah.
I knew they would demolish.
No, we used to drink out there. That's where we'd go. Like, why would you spend too much money in the bars when you could just get a 12-pack and go out there with a friend or a girl or whatever? And what
a beautiful setting.
Yeah, and just stare there. Remember those old the old wooden piers too? Like they were kind of dangerous to even walk out.
There was a spot up in Greenpoint where it was sort of like the concrete slabs that were collapsing into the river.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love this.
It was like a cubist landscape.
It was wonderful.
And just right down into the water.
One of the shitty short films I did, I shot down there. It was great.
I did sketches of that. So that's the kind of thing that I look to draw because it's not going to last. You know that you're lucky to be.
Oh, so there is a method to your madness then.
I mean, it's evolved over the time, but I think I got interested in that stuff right away.
Because I mean, mainly buildings that may not be around anymore is what it is.
I'm just a curmudgeon. I think the new buildings all suck, and the old buildings were better, and they shouldn't have torn.
You're talking about all like the metal,
just all of them,
like that,
just in general.
like what I see in Berlin everywhere. When I was in Berlin, like it's just always glass and steel. That's all it is, or just.
I mean, yeah, I don't know why you're singling Berlin out.
I mean, I don't know if it's just is it a Berlin thing?
Williamsburg.
I mean, right.
Let's talk about the ugly buildings,
or Toronto, right? I don't want to insult Berlin. I think it's sorry, Berliners, I love you.
It's building in general, and again, I didn't regret leaving architecture necessarily because so much of it just seems impractical, egotistical. Yeah. It's not confronting the actual reality, which is buildings need to use a lot less energy than we are accustomed to. Yeah, and I mean, good luck getting there, but
this sketchbook has always been your friend, so there was always something that you always had near you,
and. Just means, my early sketchbooks, I still have them, but I don't show them to people.
Right, because you're becoming who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I got the early journals. You think anybody's going to read these things? I don't think
right.
so. Right. No, they're going to be burned before I'm dead.
It took a few years for me, but I'm glad I've kept them, and it's been a continuous thing.
Now, when did you get to this kind of style? Now, when I say this kind of style, guys, like what I'm talking about is that remember we said that the binding was on the right-hand side, so it was an 8x5.
Right. So
right, and then the binding was on the side, but now
at some point
it's a little different.
Around the time I moved to New York, I found the same sort of sketchbook but with tan paper. And I knew from, I minored in art. You took classes where you drew on toned paper and you use you use white and black on a middle ground. Yeah, I minored in art.
No, I knew that, but I'm saying I didn't realize that the sketchbook if you're going to university and studying it, they don't give you just pure white paper. It's always tan. It's always beige.
No, it's a thing that at some point in a drawing class they're going to say, "Hey, guess what? You can draw on a mid-toned paper," and then you
mid-toned paper. Okay.
Yeah, just like you draw on gray or on tan or whatever,
interesting.
And then you're drawing with white, like with a Conte crayon or pastel or white colored pencil.
Yeah.
And then black, whether it's ink or pencil or whatever. So it teaches you to pay attention to highlights, to lighting and to shadows. You get it differently than when you start with a blank white, like a blinding white piece of paper. So I had switched over enthusiastically to this tan paper sketchbook. Because
is it a certain company that?
I think it's a
I bet you're specific.
Strathmore, I think but just because that's what was available.
Yeah.
And I will give a shout out to the old Pearl Paint down on Canal Street.
It's a Pearl. They're gone though, right? Are they?
Yes,
that's gone. I remember
gone, sadly.
A lot of my. I remember going there with painter friends, and they're just
a lot of my art developments came about.
Oh, Pearl.
Related to Pearl.
Pearl. It was fun to go there, even not as a painter.
It was great. It was just such a wonderful.
It was cool. And the people that went there were really bizarre. like their clientele. And the workers, some of the workers were really interesting too. Yeah.
So, I had, enthusiastically switched to that paper just because I could use white. You just very quickly get 3 shades instead of just black and white. You have
I see what you're saying.
Range, right. And then you can do the sky like in this sketch. The sky is completely done in like an acrylic paint marker in white, so you see the electrical lines kind of silhouetted against that, and I've just colored around them, and that's a quick way to get the effect of the sky. Whereas if that was the same color as the tan paper,
then you'd have to alter this.
You'd have to really pay attention to where you're seeing the sky and where.
Oh, and that's an interesting thing too, because everything that you showed me, a lot of the stuff you showed me is not inside. A lot of it, you see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you definitely have some interest.
Building exteriors.
I want to hang out with this lady.
Yeah.
Can I hang out with that lady? Is that all right with you? Like, I don't know if you know her, but whoever she is, I like her. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of the things I've seen already from your work, it's outside. So it's buildings, but also, I mean, that's an interior there. But you just said to use the lines in a way to make the sky. So if you got to do the sky, which you almost sort of admitted it's always going to be there.
Yeah, I do.
Which would infer that you're usually drawing outside and outside.
I just would sit there and imagine it from above because I make drawings like that.
And here's the same thing with the sky here, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Oh, but wait, I wanted to cover the sketchbook thing. So, like, you basically decided to cut that sketchbook in half.
Sorry, so I was using the 5x8 sketchbooks, the vertical format, 5x8, and then all of a sudden you couldn't find them anymore for some reason. This was around 2003. I don't know if it was a post 9/11 supply shortage, but you couldn't find them anywhere. So basically, I got a bunch from, I guess it was the nascent Amazon, I think, thinking that I was buying, a box of 5x8.
5x8 binding on the left side.
Right. Okay. But they came and they were 9x12, or they were, so they were twice as big.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, okay, maybe I can draw
10x18? Or 10x16?
10x16.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with that. That's
we'll stick with that one. It's cool.
So I thought, well, all right, I'll give it a try. And I hated it.
It was too big, and you're not used to it.
It was bulky, and I didn't like it. But I had been building all these coffee shops, so I had tools. So
Sure.
I got my Bosch jigsaw, and I took a look at it, and I just held it down and cut it in half.
I find this amazing. This makes me happy.
And then I just thought, well, landscape format, that suits me so much better anyway. And from that point on, because I do a lot of architectural
there's an internal
drawings, and I'll also just kind of let drawings pile up.
Yeah.
Where I'll draw like a bunch of weird little like bits of signage or something, but I'll let it unfold across the whole spread. I don't know if there's any of that in here, but so either way, that horizontal format to me just seemed it really opened up a lot of
to give an idea
of possibility.
And to give an idea to people out there, like when you're looking at this, like what's interesting when you're going through his, and I guess I could just speak as an outsider, just a person who's going into it. What's interesting when you get into his stuff is you can actually kind of sometimes feel the tactile slice of the book itself.
Sometimes it's always a raggedy.
And what's even more interesting, what's even more interesting as well is that what he's been doing in these things, and I'm not sure if you were always doing this, and I think this is one of the things I was trying to question you at the bar when we first met, or whenever we met. But like,
this is about where the gutter falls.
no, it's just what I find interesting is just like, first of all, the tactileness of not only just the slice on the side of the notebook itself, but Monte has literally zero care for having a nice sort of flattened piece of paper.
Yeah.
He is not interested in this whatsoever. In fact, when you are feeling through the books themselves, like I am now, as you can hear me like going through it here, every page is altered and sort of maladjusted from either the paint he's using, the ink that you're using. What three things is this?
So I use.
Did you use pen, the black pen for the illustration?
Acrylic, yes. So it's a fountain pen. India ink for most of the line work.
Right, got it.
In this case, watercolor and colored pencil for color. I use whiteout pen and gel pen.
Like this is whiteout ink right here?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then also paint markers, which is acrylic paint, but it's kind of like you can shake it and...
Oh, right. The ones kind of like...
So sometimes the sky... At this point, I'm pretty much only using the white paint marker, but...
Kill the Cat Radio, there it is.
Silkscreen ink, when if I'm doing a silkscreen project, I'll either even like wipe off the excess from the squeegee.
This is a crazy example. So like these, you'd be using the three here. This is first of all, the colors are amazing. I like your colors and all this stuff.
That was greens. A little over the top.
No, I don't. Is
one of the things I love about this building, which you can see from the green fence. It's something that's about to be.
So this
demolished.
is legit, by the way.
This is on Kent Avenue and 11th, maybe.
I think I just walked by this last night.
This is a.
Oh yeah, no, I did walk by this last. I know exactly where this is right here. Yeah,
it's like it's a full block industrial building, except for this little cutout corner, which is a little house with kind of a garage and another little house.
And it's right before this big turn over here on Kent when it moves over to Franklin Avenue, right?
And so the industrial building is orange brick. Right. And then the little house on the corner is just crappy, dull red
and then
shingles.
The construction green, the forest green construction boards that they put up around a site that's about to be demolished, like you said.
Yeah. And God only knows what they'll build in its place. It will
McDonald's.
Be something. No, it's going to be like a condo or something.
Right, some other steel. Views. Let me guess. Yeah, it'll have great views. Thinking it's going to have glass and steel, probably box-like, probably.
But at least they aren't tearing down that whole building.
But what is it? What are these colors here? So these are the acrylic.
So that's watercolor and a little bit of sometimes mixed with white gouache. So I have a little watercolor kit, like a travel kit, in my bag. I carry a. Do
you have it here? Do you have your? I want to check out your. I'm going to check out your gear here.
All right.
I know this is a non-visual. This is a non-visual podcast. You
can describe it. So
I will describe. So he's got a cool over-the-shoulder man purse bag, but it's like more than a man purse. It's like legit. This is like you could be military. Okay, I don't know what he's got going on here. Okay, what the hell is this?
Camping stool.
Wow, now this is very Van Gogh of you. All right, so it's like a nice...
It's a Coleman folding camping stool.
Oh, that's great. That's like the old, Monet would take his thing in here. That's so cool.
It weighs a little, but it folds down.
No, that's really good. That's actually wonderful. Yeah, and it's all heavy-duty stuff. So the bag is like, a bigger bag. It's heavy-duty. It's like a biker's bag, like a bike messenger bag. Here's the
minimal set of colored pencils.
Okay, so he's got his colored pencils here in like about an 8-inch by 4 metal little container.
And That's the watercolor set.
Oh, now that's
So
just like
little
this watercolor
cups.
set is something that every third
It's
grader would love as well.
garbage.
But it looks, by this point, with all the mix of color. What is this? Oh, is this one of the
That's
shake? Oh, this is the white
that's
out.
the paint marker, yeah.
Okay, so we got this guy.
And then I have a bunch
Does it only
of...
comes in white though? Is that the only?
No, it comes in
Okay.
all kinds of colors, but
Oh, cool.
they don't last forever.
No.
It's kind of like... It's a lot of plastic, but
Oh,
white,
cool.
you can buy the ink to refill it, and I use
Right.
white and black for the most part at this
Yeah.
point. These things I have several of. It's
What
like
is that, a
It's
felt?
a brush. That's a brush head, but the handle is hollow, so you can fill it with whatever. So
What would you call that? What's the
I think brush pen is the actual
brush pen? Huh.
name of it.
Interesting.
And I have one that's just got water to use with the watercolors, but I've
Yeah.
got one that's got black ink and one that has black ink mixed with water to be just kind of a gray. And this is like a reddish brown.
Because I'm wondering. Okay, so you've got the watercolor. You got watercolors. You got pens. You got the
That's the most of it.
ink pen. But then when you say this is acrylic here, like what is it? Where are you
No,
getting
that isn't. That's watercolor.
That's watercolor
with a little
here.
bit of gouache. Just I have a little tube of white gouache.
Oh, okay. And then where's the like? See, like I love your greens. Like people really
That's
underestimate
watercolor too.
greens.
Well, that was a Ford Town and Country or whatever.
But you're doing accurate. Like what is? Yeah, there's nothing.
I was
There's
trying
nothing.
to actually match the 70s.
Yeah,
the 70s
but-
green of that station wagon.
But then also like you have another piece over here. I don't know. I'm obsessed with people's color and why when they use it. Like even when you get like bright like this. But there was another one of the man running. See this kind of look at that. That's no one's using this kind of green here. And this is like a forest. Like I don't want to say pine green, but it's
Yeah, I'm not sure. That might be silkscreen ink. I think I might have been printing something with
Really?
green and just using up the excess. It's basically the same as.
But I wonder if the green comes out differently because it's on the tonal paper there.
It always
Maybe.
knocks it down a little bit.
How about this? This is see again more greens.
That was the paint I was actually using for that wheat paste. But I mean, you know,
Right here,
greens-
this guy exactly. See this? This is one of my
so
faves.
this is when I was doing, like I was talking about the wheat paste at the levee.
yes.
This is I was silk screening that. I was silk screening the backgrounds for that piece onto newsprint. It's sort of a montage of silk screens in fluorescent green. So basically, when I'm done printing, it's on all kinds of tools, so I would just wipe them down.
Right.
So this is sort of a buildup of just wiping paint off from
But
other
what
projects.
paint is this? This is acrylic
And then
paint.
the black, the green is silkscreen ink. The white is probably acrylic paint.
Okay.
The black it's a silkscreen of a guy running away. It's from, it's the second time it's come up. I should know the name of the film. It was like a 1970 Italian political thriller. This guy is a journalist and he's about to get run down by a car. He's running away from a car. And I just always thought it's a great image of a man running.
It's a great image, but I love what you're doing.
Suit.
To even like simulate movement, it's an interesting...
I found that once I'd made a silkscreen of it, I could smudge it and do it repeatedly, and I've just always had a good time.
So the question was like, yeah, you don't want to become a t-shirt factory. You don't want to have, you like doing the freelance gigs. That's fine. The freelance gigs are great. They bring in money. It's fantastic. But you say you can't see yourself at 74. You're like, okay, I'm 54 now, 74. But where is that junction where this becomes a reality in a way that you would feel hasn't been sort of appeared yet?
Yeah, I don't know. Live in a van, maybe.
I thought you wanted your own studio.
It could be be inside a van.
right. That's true. I mean, you do work in small spaces.
I think the dream scenario would be I have a little house somewhere that I get to make my own place, whether I build it from scratch or just take,
because I see you in a city setting. I don't see you in a small town because you need the tools that you want to pay.
I disagree.
Really? You might go back to the farms.
My kid's going to go off to college. I'm not necessarily going to be tied to New York.
Oh, I see. So you've been tied here. Oh.
I could totally run upstate or
the
Adirondacks or someplace and try to.
But then all you'd have to
and that would be like a base.
But there'd be no structures there. It'd just be nature. I mean,
there are small towns.
Sure. Right.
So I would probably want urbanism, but like I say, I wouldn't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm very curious.
As a base, somehow I have, somehow I managed to sell my art using digital means or whatever means.
Right. And nowadays you could do that, especially for visual artists. Instagram, all these other options.
In theory, I could. As we've discussed, I've managed to get on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so my Instagram is on the page up there, hopefully. Beyond that, I'm not super savvy about that sort of stuff. But, hard
there's
pressed,
no-
maybe
yeah.
I could become, so...
There's
what I
no
would
better
like-
time for a visual artist, I'm saying, than right now.
So
There's
I want-
never been a history in time for that.
Right. So I want to have a base somewhere within striking distance of New York City or Seattle or
Right.
someplace that's, full of civilization.
Right.
But I like the idea of roaming around the country in a van and drawing
imagine-
stuff, because I get bored in one place.
Yeah,
I
getting out of
kind
the
of feel
city,
like I've drawn almost everything in Williamsburg and
Yeah, you've done a
Greenpoint
lot.
that I want to draw. I'm always looking for new things, but there's everything else out there, and I wouldn't mind being nomadic. I've been kind of in one place for, as long as I've ever been. Actually, I've been in New York City longer than I've been in any other one spot.
You've been here the longest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, to me, what's crazy about what you're doing and what's interesting about what you're doing, I always find a lot of different artists, and I have to always ask that question, is like, where the hell does this even come from? I mean, there's a drive in you. There's a drive in you to do this all the time. Like,
Yeah.
have you even tried to analyze that stuff of your own self? Like, why
Sure.
I can understand for practice. Like, if you were to tell me, oh, this is just practice,
Oh no.
I would not believe you at all.
I would say it is a practice.
It's
It is
a
a thing you
practice.
do.
Right,
It's like if you do Tai Chi or something.
Of course.
The sketchbook.
Of course.
To me it's a somewhat ritualized process that I chose long ago to do and have refined over the course of decades to do the way I do it now. And I'm certainly driven to do it. It's momentum as much as anything. But I mean, I get a tremendous satisfaction, meaning brain drugs. It
Like, you get satisfaction when you're done here. Like, when you finish something, you're like, oh
when
my
I'm
God.
sitting making a sketch.
So
I'm
it's
saying,
in the process
when
of
I've
it.
unfolded the camp stool,
When the camp
and I'm
stool's
sitting
down,
on the
it's
sidewalk,
sitting there and you're
drawing like some old Ford Fairlane or some weird rundown building. I just I'm as meditative as I ever get.
Wow.
For that time, and it'll be like 20 minutes where I do nothing but engage with the thing I'm drawing and the piece of paper and the pen and the flow of ink, and it's just incredibly satisfying.
That's it for this week. I'm Matthew Diabate. You're listening to Kill the Cat Radio. Stay alive out there. Keep curious. Until next week, this is KTCR, signing off.